Welcome to Buddha Gang, where we transform and grow together as an engaged Buddhist community. Our focus is on sharing personal experiences, collective issues related to suffering and its causes, and the timeless teachings of the Buddha. We're committed to building a compassionate community through deep understanding and mutual support. Prem Das said,
Buddha Gang is always transforming. As an engaged Buddhist community, we share about our personal experiences and collective issues related to suffering and its causes. We deeply care about these issues, but we also make room for happy teachings and truly beautiful things. The Buddha himself recognized the importance of beauty, and so do we. Sharing images of mindful walks, beautiful scenery, and friendly messages helps us understand and love each other across time and space.
The wanderer then smiled and said,
Exactly. This understanding creates and reinforces our community of good friends, Kalyana Mitras. Sharing both the good and the bad helps us stay connected and genuine. In the past, our chat was mostly filled with uplifting content, but we've realized the importance of also sharing admin discussions and addressing more challenging topics to bridge the disconnect within our community.
Prem replied,
Lately, we've been focusing on Mahayana Bodhisattva Buddhism, emphasizing ethics and the karma of other beings. This means sometimes speaking up when we see our friends doing something obviously wrong. It's an act of Kalyanamitrata spiritual friendship, knowing it might not always be well received. This ties into the teaching on the two truths. The conventional, relative, or historical truth is that reality we perceive, the world we experience and understand through concepts and associations, constructing a sense of self based on these interactions. It's this reality where thoughts and words can make some sense. This self-concept helps us navigate the world and communicate with others. People like Freud and the Romans before him spoke of ego, but Freud added some baggage that confused people today, and pop culture has used the term ego in ways that created baggage the Buddha would not have cared about. Many people use the term in ways that suggest they think it means something like a set of unwholesome volitional formations related to self and selfishness and pride and arrogance, or something like that. This is the conditioned meaning of an empty word, changing in front of our eyes, but we can be more discerning. We can notice that ego, at root, just meant I, and then we can hop over to Buddha land to confirm that the Buddha used an equivalent term to analyze and discuss reality for the sake of beings. This is adaptive eloquence and skillful means, and bodhisattvas copy the Buddha in this way. Ego is a social construct that allows us to function in our everyday lives. Emotions like curiosity, explorations of worldly appearances through skillful use of manovijnana, the thinking flow of dualistic discrimination and patterns around aversion and fear all play crucial roles in how we understand, approach, and respond to new experiences, driving our actions and reactions. Worldly things and beings are real enough to matter to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. But sure, caring isn't always easy, and caring in public is even less easy. Caring makes us vulnerable to unwholesome actions, as us sentient beings have these habits around doing harmful things and then saying that it's okay to harm others because we care a lot about whatever it is that caused us to label them enemy. But no, there are no real enemies other than the unwholesome volitional formations that cause suffering, like greed and hatred and delusion, the three poisons at the hub of this samsara wheel.
The wanderer knew what Prem was talking about, so she then smiled and said,
Conventions matter, conventional realities matter. Ultimate reality matters too, though. Ultimate truth reveals that everything, all these conventions and histories of conventions in historical or relative or conventional realities, including the notions and words around self or Atman, it is all totally empty of inherent, independent existence. They are dependent on causes and conditions and are constantly changing. A bodhisattva who knows ultimate truth has unlocked a more fierce and potent love. Love and wisdom are always like this. Think of Jesus Bodhisattva and how he flipped over the tables of those who sought to profit in the holy places by taking advantage of the people's naivety and fear with greed. Wise love can be fierce like this, but it won't be harmful. The Galilean Bodhisattva urged us to be like him, embodying this fierce, compassionate love. In some sources, he even suggested that we should surpass him in our actions karma. However, over time, the essence of his woke message was muted. The religious leaders who came after him, having accepted the yoke of the Roman elite for money and power with greed and hatred and delusion, gradually favored worldly power over the truth. People got hung up on a weird idea about faith. And then there was the idea that all beings are inherently sinful or originally evil. The faith-only doctrine confused the masses, but James, in the New Testament, gave teaching they could have used to avoid that error.
This historical shift is a cautionary tale. It reminds us that genuine spiritual teachings can be diluted or altered by those in power. It's a call for us to return to the roots of these teachings, to understand and embody their true essence. Jesus' Bodhisattva's actions in the temple weren't just about anger. They were about defending the integrity of spiritual practice and standing against exploitation and injustice. In the context of engaged Buddhism in the USA today, we face numerous forces that push us back into old, harmful habits of greed, intolerance, corruption, and the misrepresentation of spiritual teachers. This mirrors how the teachings of Jesus were distorted over time by those in power. Thich Nhat Hanh, like Jesus, had to disagree with the prevailing orthodoxy of his time and place. This dissent gave birth to engaged Buddhism, a term he coined as he vocally disagreed with the establishment. He wrote and distributed pamphlets to the masses to convey his message, much like how we now distribute news, analysis, and Buddhist teachings through social media platforms. It would be ideal if there were no conflict, but the reality is that we modern people are repeating the same mistakes with TH and the Buddha that were made with Jesus. Their teachings are being misrepresented, often by those seeking to maintain their own power and control. This distortion leads to a watered-down version of their profound and transformative messages, which originally called for radical compassion, justice, and understanding.
Engaged Buddhism, as TNH envisioned, is about applying the Buddha's teachings to contemporary issues, addressing suffering and its causes in the here and now. This means we must be vigilant against greed, intolerance, and corruption, both within ourselves and in the wider society. It involves actively standing against misrepresentations of spiritual teachings that dilute their revolutionary potential. We can reflect like this: I see these challenges clearly, but I do not harbor hate or anger towards anyone. I firmly reject violence in all forms. Instead, I strive to embody fierce, compassionate love, much like Jesus Bodhisattva did. This means taking a stand against injustice and exploitation while nurturing a deep, unwavering love for all beings. Through our actions, which means karma, and through our teachings, which is our karma, we aim to foster a more just, compassionate, and awakened society, staying true to the spirit of engaged Buddhism as TNH and the Buddha and Jesus Bodhisattva intended.
Follow me for more engaged Buddhism like this.